In this video, I am going to be addressing the issue of not being sexually attracted to anyone. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about here. We're going to find out together, so stay tuned. I'm John from BulldogMindset.com, and welcome to the place where you can learn how to be a man in a modern society. If you want to gain financial freedom in your life, if you want to build a physique that you want to have, and you want to have the women that you desire in your life, then you are in the right place, my friends. Just click that subscribe button, become a Bulldog, and join us on our quest. So, I got this email. And like I said, I'm just going to give it right off the top of my head here and just tell you what I think about this. He says, "Hey, John, I've been a fan of yours for quite some time now, since the later stages of Simple Programmer, and is wondering if you could supply some Bulldog insight into my situation. I absolutely love your approach to life, and I've been trying, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully, but overall positively, to incorporate your principles and Stoic philosophy into my way of life and daily routines." All right, that's awesome. That's good. All right, let's see what he's got here. "I really love your advice on how to approach dating women in relationships. I'm a 26-year-old guy struggling to accomplish my goals. But to be honest, I only look at your relationship advice from a sort of outsider's perspective, and really only use it as a means to manipulate other people, knowing that almost everyone has some sort of sexual goal. I'm a computer science student, and I have often been called out because of my outgoing, personable nature, and how I don't quite fit in with the stereotype as much as I am fascinated with the subject." Okay, guys, so you know me. I'm going to be a little bit real here and psychoanalyze a little bit here. And I don't mean to be harsh, okay, but it may come out a little harsh. So, if you're listening and you wrote this email, I'm not going to say names because this is kind of personal in nature. Just know that I'm going to dissect things like I would dissect myself here, okay? So there's a couple of things that I'm going to point out right from the beginning that is, I want you guys to see how I kind of analyze this and how I look at life, right? And, you should always judge people by their actions, not what they say, even when they type you an email, because what their actions are is what they put down, what they chose to say. Now, it seems kind of confusing, but what I mean is there's subtext always, okay? There's always something else going on underneath this, right? So we've got a few things here, right? So he's applying the Bulldog mindset. That's good, all right? And he likes the advice on dating women in relationships, okay? And, he's struggling, okay? He's struggling to accomplish his own goals, okay? So that's good. Now, he says that he looks at the relationship advice from a sort of outsider's perspective and really using it only as a means to manipulate other people. Now, this is kind of interesting, right? There's a little bit of a sociopathic tint to this, right? If you're going to use something to manipulate other people, that's, it's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Again, I've talked about this a lot, but leadership and manipulation are the same skill set, the exact same techniques, but one of them is for your benefit solely, and the other one is for the mutual benefit of you and another person, or just their benefit, right? Leadership is for their benefit, typically, okay? So that doesn't, ring super alarm bells, but using it this way, the way that he's phrased this, as something to brag about, right? If you're using this advice to manipulate someone, saying that blatantly would not be something that you would say unless you're trying to brag to some degree, okay? And you'll see some patterns through this, I think, in this email, all right? I've briefly read over it. Knowing that almost everyone has some sort of sexual goal. So, yes, it's true that someone has a sexual goal, that everyone pretty much does. And if you understand that, it is a very effective way to, quote, manipulate or to influence people. We'll use the word influence because that's what it really comes down to. Because when you know what someone's after, okay, you know what they, how to basically get them to do what you want, right? I know that you really, really like cookies, okay, and I just happen to bring some cookies, all right, I'm going to have some power over you, some influence over you, okay? So that's an interesting thing here. But he says, "I'm a computer science student and have often been called out because of my outgoing, personable nature and how I don't quite fit in with the stereotype." Okay, so again, when someone says these statements, right, it probably means that to some degree it's the opposite is somewhat true, and this person is trying to become this, right? A lot of times what we'll do is we'll take our weaknesses okay, and we will disguise them as strengths. So this is one of the big struggles. I struggled with this myself, and a lot of you guys, as you're developing, as you're trying to tap into your masculinity, what you're going to find is that you're going to take something that is a sore spot for you, something that is a weakness for you, and you're going to try and make that a plus, right? So the common one I get from a lot of you guys, right, is that you'll tell me that you are good with women, okay, or that you're very attractive, or that women are attracted to you, or something like that, or that you could if you tried, right? And when you say that, when you brag about that, it's because you're covering up that deficiency, because you know that there's actually a weakness there. It's a sore spot. So when someone says that, it usually means the opposite, right? So one really, interesting thing is to look. I did this video on looking in the mirror. Maybe we can link to that if we can find that video. It'll be in the cards of the description if we can find it. If not, you can search on the channel, obviously. But I talk about looking rawly into the mirror. Rawly, is that a word? But looking into the mirror objectively and seeing yourself, right? Not just in your physical form, like naked, okay, and seeing if you're fat and seeing what you actually look like, but also just your personality and your deficiencies and who you are as a human being. And not in a judgmental way, but just in a very raw and genuine, authentic way, right? That you're trying to be as objective as possible, okay? And when you do that, what you'll find, and what I found initially when I had done this, when I was professing to be good with women and all of these traits and professing to be strong and masculine and fearless, okay, and I could fight anyone and all of these kind of things, was that most of those things were actually completely the opposite. I was horrible. I was shy. I was scared. I was extremely introverted, okay? I was a person that would back away from conflict, okay? That was a peacemaker. I was basically what you would call a nice guy, but I was pretending to be this ferocious, beast of a man, all right? But I wasn't that. I was a boy. I was not a man. And until I stripped away everything, until I saw that, okay, I could not evolve. I could not become what I was meant to become, right? I could not make steps in that direction to really stepping into what I'll call my manhood, okay? Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because when I see this, I say that this is possibly not true, okay? That this is possibly the opposite. And now, again, if you look at some outward displays, right, you're going to see, I would guess that this person that wrote this email would outwardly appear to be outgoing and personable, but it's because he's forcing it, okay? Because he's going against the grain of what he truly is, okay? And until he accepts that this is a difficult thing for him to do and he wants to be this, he will never actually become this, right? When I made the biggest leaps in my life, it was at the time where I had been very objective, and I realized, right, there was a point when I was a young man, and, well, I would say young boy at that time, where I was very scared. I was very afraid to approach women, to talk to them, okay, to have any kind of real interactions, right? I didn't really have relationships. I didn't really have any success with women, but I wanted to pretend like I was this shit, okay? And when I actually realized that, you know what, you're actually scared, you're scared shitless, like you are not what you're pretending to be, I had to actually now face that and say, okay, where am I now? I'm here. I have to actually become this. In order to become this, I'm going to have to take real steps. I'm going to actually make this a true thing. This thing that I want to be true, that I've been proclaiming about myself, that is false, that I've been spending so much energy and effort upholding, it's not actually true. I need to actually go and make this true. And then I was able to take those steps. It was able to free me because then I could start at ground zero. See, when you think you're here, right? So we could use this as an example. And by the way, guys, I'm using this email as an example, although I could be totally wrong. I could be totally misreading this. I just want you to understand this because I'm just using this as fodder, right? This is something for us to talk about because there's some lessons. There's some philosophical and stoic lessons in here and just some lessons about dissecting our personalities and developing and growing as men, okay? So I just want to give you that side note so you realize that, I almost said the name, but the gentleman that sent me this email, he could be all these things. I could be misreading this, but this is just how I approach things. Okay. So anyway, what he may need to do in order to actually become this is to start at ground zero and say, I am not this. I have a hard time being outgoing. I have a hard time being personable, right? I don't quite fit in. I have a hard time not fitting in with the stereotype. I want to be different than this, but I'm at ground zero, right? Just like I said, in my whole dating life and everything, I had to basically say, you know what? Actually, not only are you not good with women, you're the opposite of it. You're junk with it. Like, you're actually like a little scared boy, okay? And once I had that freedom of admitting that, okay, now I could grow. Now every single improvement that I made was an actual improvement and was a tangible, real improvement, and so I could grow on that. But as long as you're upholding this fake image, what ends up happening is that you have to keep on defending it, and you can't actually grow because you have to basically rationalize and justify every action in terms of the image that you currently are trying to, the fake image you're holding of yourself, right? So if you have this fake image of yourself, when you screw up, when you are not, when you back down because of fear, you say, well, you know, the situation wasn't right. You make all these kind of excuses so you never actually grow. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. So anyway, like I said, I could be totally wrong with him, but I'm getting some signals here. I'm getting a couple of things, right? The one is that to manipulate other people. When someone says that they're, you know, if I were to read this, right, I would say that he's probably pretty nice and would not ever manipulate you, right? He would be the one being manipulated in some regards, and that he's probably not, like, he's probably trying to be outgoing and personable, but is actually falling into the stereotype of a typical programmer, a typical geek, right? And so this is kind of the way to lift above that, okay? Now, it says, I've never been sexually attracted to anyone, female or male, okay? Again, I don't know if this is a true statement or not, but we'll take this at face value for now. Whether this problem is with my past or simply the way I'm wired, I still need to work that out with myself. Okay, so there's a few hints here. You know, is this with my past, okay, or the way I'm wired? This is kind of an interesting thing. I think that a person that truly has no sexual attraction to anyone, they know the answer to this question. They don't, you know, they're probably, in fact, what they're going to say is they're going to say it's the way that they're wired. Okay. They're going to say, I'm just wired that way. That's just how I am. Okay. Whereas someone that says it could be a problem with my past, it sort of opens the door. In my mind, I'm saying, okay, I'm not sure if I'm totally believing this at this point. All right. I still need to work that out with myself. I'm a virgin and I am very, very comfortable with that. Again, another indicator here. I'm a virgin and I'm very, very comfortable with that exclamation point. So based on my, you know, dissecting and psychoanalysis of this, you could pause the video. What do you guys think, right? How would you interpret this statement, right? Do you think this is a true statement? What does this statement actually indicate? Okay. And I'm giving you, and here's the other thing for you guys that are watching this, you can take this and you can use this on yourself, right? Because you want to look at the statements that you're making. You want to look at the kind of things that you are saying about yourself and believing, and you want to dissect this as if you were a third party. So when I read this, okay, and the emphasis on this, I read the opposite. I say, I'm not very comfortable with that. I feel like there's something wrong. You know, another indicator of this would be, why would you email me if there's nothing wrong? If you're a virgin and you're very, very comfortable with that, and you have no problem being not sexually attracted to anyone, then you really don't need any advice. You don't need any help. You're kind of beating the world, right? You can be a monk, right? But probably if you are taking some amount of pride in this and trying to say that, like, convince me that you're very comfortable with it, it probably means that you're not very comfortable with it, okay? So there's probably some deep layers here. And just right off the bat here, right, before even reading any further, I would guess that this comes from feelings of inadequacy and seeking some kind of external validation and thinking and believing truly that you cannot fulfill it, right? So I've got some theories. I won't go into, you know, the gay theory. Well, I guess I will, since I broached the subject. Okay. Now, this doesn't apply to everyone, but there's a certain portion, this is my theory, of gay men, okay, that I believe that the reason why they're gay is because they honestly feel that they cannot compete as men in the sexual marketplace. Now, don't take this in the wrong way, because I don't think that applies to every gay. There's some people that it's pretty clear that just genetically, just whatever it is, I'm not I can't, make 100% predictions on exactly that, but there's some guys that I would say that they're just gay, okay? But there's a significant portion, I would say, from my observations. So my theory is that a lot of gay men, or a percentage of them, I won't say a lot, but a certain percentage of them, they feel like they can't compete, and so they go that way. And so it's kind of a coping strategy that we all as humans evolve to some degree, right? If we feel like we can't do something, we basically opt out of that, right? So a lot of times you'll see this in competition where someone will be challenged, and instead of responding by trying, let's say that I challenge you to a race. I'm like, okay, we're going to see who can run the fastest, right? There's some people that will step up and it doesn't matter how fucking slow they are, they're going to run, all right? And they're going to get their asses whipped, and they know it doesn't matter, all right? But they're going to try. And there's some people that will say, no, I don't race, or no, I'm not going to do that, or, they're going to make some kind of excuse. And so they're basically opting out because they know that they're going to lose. And so this is a lot of times the case in someone like this, is that they feel like they can't not be a virgin. They feel like they are not going to win in this sexual marketplace, that they're not going to be able to attract a woman, right, for you guys. And so they claim to not be sexually attracted to them, and then they claim that they're very comfortable with being a virgin. Okay, it's a coping strategy, because if you adopt that mindset, if you say, okay, that's not what I'm trying to do, I'm I'm just thinking now as I'm saying this, like that the person who wrote this email is gonna watch this video and he's gonna be so upset. But like I said, I could be totally wrong. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, so but I might be right here. So we'll see. It's not personal. I'm not making any kind of personal attacks. All right, we'll have a beer sometime. All right. So anyway, so my point is this: is that it's very likely in this case that that's what's going on. Is that this psychology, and this is an important one to understand in yourself. Like I said, is that there's probably a lot of areas of your life where you're opting out because you feel like you can't compete or you can't win. Okay, and so what you're doing is you're adopting, it's almost like sour grapes, right? You're familiar with Aesop's fable, right? The fox that couldn't reach the grapes that were too high up, so he said those grapes are probably sour. This is possibly what's going on here, and we do this in a lot of subtle ways in our lives, okay? Many folks from both genders have painfully obviously tried to give me their number and hook up with me, but I have kind of given them the cold shoulder. So again, another indicator here that that has some flags for me. One aspect of this, again, if you guys are following along, want to play the game, what do you think? How would you interpret this statement? Okay, do you think that it's true that many folks from both genders have painfully obviously tried to give the number and hook up with them? Okay, so if you're living in this reality, in this life, you probably have found that it doesn't really happen. I mean, maybe if you're a girl, then yes, but as a guy, you don't typically have women and men trying to give you their number and hook up with you. Now, it can happen on occasion, especially if you're good looking and suave and whatnot, but in general, that's not the general life experience of most people, right? So to just at face value, this doesn't seem like a very true statement, especially when you say many. If he said, like, on occasion, some women have tried to hook up with me, or again, tried to hook up with me, maybe give their number or have shown interest in me or flirted with me. Okay, I believe that. But, someone who's not putting off any sexual signals, it's unlikely that women are coming up to him and saying, I want to hook up with you, right? Like, that may be inferred. Again, it could be a coping strategy. It could be dealing with reality and misinterpreting signals and thinking that's happening. Or more likely, though, it's that you're wanting that to happen, and so you're stating that, okay? Again, this is where we have weaknesses, we have vulnerabilities, and we cover them up by going the opposite direction and building up on top of that. All right, so that's how I see that when he says that. And then, his reaction, I've kind of given them the cold shoulder. So if you're really in this state where you're not sexually attracted to anyone, and you're really curious about this, if people are coming up to you that want to hook up with you, maybe you're just like, hey, sure, why not? Let's give it a try. Let's see if I'm asexual or not. Let's see if I get a boner or not, okay? That's, that's one thing that hasn't been mentioned here at all, is like, I would ask the question, if I had this person in front of me, I'd say, well, do you masturbate? Okay. I mean, yeah, that's a tough question, but hey, and what do you think about? What do you fantasize about? Because it'd be very kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a good test, because if he's like, no, never, I just don't even have the urge at all. I've never had a boner, or I have, and then I was like, what is this? And I didn't know what to do with it. Okay, then I'm going to believe you more. But I don't have the ability to ask that question, so instead I have to decode here. And I would say that someone in this situation is probably going to be like, okay, yeah, fuck it, let's try it, let's see, let's have a couple of fireball shots, and let's see what happens. All right. So the fact that he's just giving the cold shoulder, just kind of makes this seem like a cope. Okay. I see this as a kind of superpower that allows me to ignore and even deride the sex crazed culture that all of us live in, at least in the USA. And again, while at a surface level I would agree with the statement, when I read deeper into this, it's another sort of not really braggadocious, but a statement that's kind of a braggy statement, saying that I have a superpower, right? This is a way, like, if you have a weakness, but then you can say, oh, it's my superpower, that makes you feel better about it. Okay. It helps you justify. You don't have to face the truth. You don't have to face the reality, because to some people, like, ego is really powerful, right? It's an earth shattering thing that our egos cannot take, if we have to really discover the truth about ourselves. Like, if we hold it in high regard to be a sexually desirable person, right? Which I think this is clearly the case here. And then we find out that we're not, that would destroy our ego too much, right? And so what we have to do is we have to be very careful and gentle with our ego, and strip it down as a third-party observer, and be non-judgmental when we evaluate ourselves. That's the whole looking in the mirror exercise. So he says, sometimes, though, it gets me pretty down that I might be missing some kind of key, some edge that could unlock my full potential. Now, this is more of an honest statement, that, him saying that it gets him down, to me, okay, now it sounds a little bit more believable, because this is an actual reaction that someone would have. You would probably feel a little bit self-conscious and down by that you're missing out in some way. Okay, so that seems like an honest behavior. But when it's paired with the phrase, some edge that could unlock my full potential, then I have to question it and wonder about it again. Again, I may be reading too much into this, but this is how I interpret situations based on the information that I have. As much as I'm comfortable with myself, again, another clue here, right? See, look at all this verbology. Verbology? Is it verbiage? All of this verbiage that is indicating self-comfort and acceptance of this, right? Whereas you can see that there's conflicting things here, right? It's trying to prove, he's trying to prove something. He's trying to almost convince himself the things that he's telling me, okay? It is just overwhelming to know that I don't fit in at all with our sexually oriented culture, right? So it's almost making this be a bad thing, right? Another clue here. To know how fucked up it is, and to see myself as an anomaly. I'd sincerely appreciate your insight and look forward to your advice. Okay, so, yeah, so, again, I have to say this multiple times, because I don't want a whole bunch of butthurt comments here, which is that I don't know for sure that my interpretation is correct here. Okay, this is my gut. Okay, this is how I'm going based on coaching, a lot of people, having a lot of social interaction, studying this kind of stuff, studying psychology, studying philosophy, and really trying to help people in situations, right? I've helped a lot of people transform their lives, and I have to basically go in with a surgical knife, and I have to dissect all the bullshit that you're telling me, right? I just had a live stream where some guy, I was on Face and LMS. A lot of you guys wanted me to do that. You can find the video. Maybe I'll put a link in here. But it wasn't really a debate, by the way, okay? And there was a caller into the show that was in the gym in his camera, and he's like telling me about how he basically has all these women that are attracted to him, and he doesn't know how to respond because he's got Asperger's or whatever, right? And I was like, the very first thing I told him, I said, let's cut the bullshit. This is not what's happening. Like, you're bullshitting me right now. And he eventually admitted it, and he admitted that he wasn't actually getting those signals that he was claiming to, and he hadn't actually had the success that he did. But I had to cut with the knife first, right? I had to cut through all the bullshit in order to get there. And so that's why I'm doing this in this video. Okay. So to address the heart of the issue, like assuming that some of this stuff is true, that he's asexual in nature, I would say that yes, there's a small percentage possibility, very, very small, that this person is truly asexual and does not have sexual attraction to men or women, doesn't have any kind of sexual attraction. Okay. That's a very, very, very small chance. Okay. If that is the case, there's nothing wrong with that. Just live your life. Just enjoy your life. You know, maybe yes, you can manipulate other people with their sexual desire for you. You can be a dandy or something like that. Read Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction, and you can see how you can apply those tactics to life. All right, and combine it with 48 Laws of Power. You're going to be, you know, especially if you're extremely desirable, you're going to be extremely powerful. Okay, there's some examples in that book or both of those books of that happening. Okay, if that's the case, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, that's just how it is. Maybe it could be a superpower in that case, because you're not going to be swayed by the things that tempt and sway other people. Okay, but I would say that the higher percentage chance is that that's not the case. The one that I would bank on is what I'm saying. But let's assume again that the person sending this email is telling the truth, okay, that there's not this hidden psychosis going on here, that he's not covering up things and protecting the fragile ego. And let's assume that he really does have this problem, and it's not a genetic or biological thing, it's something in the history, something in your past. What I would do if I were you in this situation is I would go on an exploration to try and find my sexuality. Okay, if this concerns you and you feel like there's something that's holding you back, I'd look into my history and I would say, you know, what kind of events, what kind of things would cause me to behave and act this way, right? Like I said, the most likely one would be some form of rejection or self-rejection, believing you're not good enough, okay, that you can't be this thing, and so you're choosing to opt out of the game. That's the first thing I do. The second thing I would do is I would go and I would explore. Go look at, you know, I'm typically, for the most part, for most of you guys, I'm against pornography, okay, because I feel like it is a vice and it is a crutch, okay, because it is allowing you to get something that you should have to earn, if that makes sense. All right, so in this case, though, I would say go and look at some pornography. Go look at like some gay sex videos. Go look at some straight sex videos. Go look at whatever, you know, and see what actually turns you on. Okay, you should have probably already done this. I mean, you're 26. I'm guessing that you have, but I don't see it in the email here. So I honestly, you know, I'll give you my honest advice. I would go and do that and see. All right, if you've got people that are actually really approaching you, then go and see. Try to start a relationship. Try to hook up or do something and see, you know, how you respond. Okay, it's not the advice that your pastor or your mom's going to give you, but you know, it's important to figure out the shit in life, I think, right? And to figure out what is the thing that is driving this. And I would want to, if I were you, I would want to determine, is this a biological problem with me, okay, that is making me asexual, and that's just how I'm going to live my life as a monk, and you know, is that the case? Or is it some kind of psychological problem, right, that is causing this? Because if it's the first one, it's great. You don't have any pressure. You can just live your life and you can be free. If it's the second one, this shit is going to affect you in more than one way, and it's going to surface later on, okay? And you're hiding and you're repressing things, and you know, it could take you down a very dark path. Whenever we repress things, emotions, feelings, right, inadequacies in ourselves, and we try to protect the ego, we become delusional to some degree, and we operate out of that delusion, right? We want to really operate out of our true sense, especially as men giving our gifts to the world. We want to operate from the true sense, what I would call grounded. Okay, so we know who we are, we know what we want in life, okay, and we go after that thing. You're gonna have a really hard time being a bulldog, having that bulldog mindset, if you're not that person, right? You're still young, you're 26, okay, it's fine, but you need to figure this shit out. If you haven't already, go ahead and take the bulldog quiz, all right, and see what your bulldog score is. Are you not sexually attracted to anyone? How have you dealt with that in your life? Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.